It is a test. Hello. This video is on the historiography of Tacitus. There are three key things that you need to consider when addressing the historiography of an ancient historian. Firstly, their historical background and how that colours their writing. Secondly, the purpose of their writing. And thirdly, how Factor 1 and Factor 2 influence their interpretations of their characters. For the purpose of Tacitus, I will refer to the Julio-Claudians as characters, as ultimately Tacitus creates an almost fictitious depiction or a caricature of who they would have been. He focuses primarily on creating a moral story. Therefore, his characters need to possess either good or evil qualities in order to teach his moral story. For example, how to live a good life, how to treat people justly, or, in the case of the Julio-Claudians, that some Romans are born evil, and their evil will reveal itself throughout their lifetime. Tacitus needs to be credited for providing a rich text full of historically accurate events. However, he tends to mix these facts with rumours, gossip, supernatural events, or entertaining stories. Now let's address these three key factors about the historiography of Tacitus. Firstly, his background and how that colours his writing. He was a member of the Senate at the time of Domitian. Modern historian Goodyear describes this as a tyrannical emperor. So Tacitus, living as a senator under Domitian, who was a dictator, for lack of better words, means it was heavily influencing his annalistic recording of history. Now, I say annalistic recording of history because annal, spelt A-N-N-A-L, means a recording of items in chronological order. So he is creating a chronology of these people, hence the name annal. He is a product of his context, and his attitudes, this is a quote from Suetonius, who writes using Tacitus's work. His attitudes are coloured by his equestrian class and senatorial rank. So even Suetonius, who writes gossip, can identify that Tacitus is tainted by living under this tyrannical emperor. As Domitian was a supporter of Tiberius, particularly, and then by extent the other Julio-Claudians, Tacitus is highly opposed to their dictatorship, even though Domitian and Tiberius are very different leaders. Therefore, Tacitus would have been deliberately persuading his audience to support his belief, be anti-dictatorship, and then anti-Julio-Claudian. So the second factor, the purpose of his writing. As an ancient writer, he would have been delivering his works orally, so out loud, in the forum to an illiterate Roman audience, so they cannot read. So he would have presented this in the forum to the audience. It therefore needs to be highly descriptive, dramatic, emotional, and persuasive. It needs to entertain the audience. It needs to entertain them so much so that he can he can teach his moral lessons. They need to retain these, you should not have evil leaders as your leaders. His aim in his annals was to expose the evils of the Principate under the Julio-Claudians, and this is paraphrased from Pamela Bradley. His aim in the annals was to expose the evils of the Principate under the Julio-Claudians, and to show its degeneration into tyranny. He hoped his readers would learn a lesson from the experiences of those from the past. Okay, Pamela Bradley again. So Tacitus, his choice of theme and style of writing is influenced by ancient historiography, by other historians writing at the time, or at least reading aloud at the time. Where history was a branch of literature, it was intended to be read aloud to an audience to teach that moral lesson. Based on Tacitus, and this is a quote at the start of his Annals, I think it's line 2 or 3. His foremost duty is to ensure that merit is recorded and to, quote, confront evil words and deeds, end quote, with fear of posterity's denunciation. Okay, so he's saying, in hindsight, or now I'm living, when we look back on history, we need to confront those evil words and deeds and look down upon those who cast those evil words and deeds. Based on modern historian Goodyear, Tacitus does not suppress or pervert his evidence. He doesn't change it. But he supplies us with both sides of the argument. So he provides the facts and the historical evidence. But at the same time, he also provides his rumours, his interpretation, and his sort of persuasive spin on that. So now we'll talk about the third factor. How factor 1 and 2 influence the interpretations of their characters. So Tacitus is highly manipulative and selective of his portrayal of his characters. For example, Claudius was, quote, dominated by his wives and freedmen, end quote. And Princeps Nero, who Tacitus describes as, quote, extravagance, sexual depravity, and un-Roman innovations depicted with verve and disapproval. So he's positioning the audience to be anti-Nero in that quote. And Tacitus' final quote on Tiberius. So, quote, the cruelty of Tiberius, who was detested, and his perversions unrevealed. Okay, so again, you've got that that negative spin on by Tacitus on Tiberius. So, using this focus here, and the effect of his background and political career on the composition of his annals, we have a look at what Pamela Bradley writes. And she says, to persuade his readers, Tacitus persuades his readers to support his own convictions. He uses a number of devices, particularly the damning asides, right, to create prejudice by making sinister innuendos, and I'll take you over here, sinister innuendos, and attributing false motives to actions. Okay, so that is the focus of his writing, based on Pamela Bradley. He gives 2 points of view, but allows more space to one than the other. Right, so that's something you can comment on and address as well. He uses rumours to good effect, even when discounting them as untrue. Okay, so this is all in Pamela Bradley's 2 pages, or at least 4 pages. Right, so let's have a look at some of the key points that we've already discussed. So Tacitus often gives 2 points of view. Right? He then gives a detailed description of the rumour, but finishes by saying, so he'll spend a page or 2 on this rumour and then say, this was wildly rumoured but it is not backed up by any reliable authority, and it can be confidently refuted. So we can deny this and reject this. Okay, why does he put it in there? Because it's entertaining. So, additionally, he chooses his material carefully in order to emphasize the negative and oppressive aspects of the Principate. He's trying to show how evil a dictatorship is and how evil one-man rule is, because living under Domitian has created that sense of fear in the Senate. Right? Tacitus is trying to show how it originated under Tiberius's rule, and it's been getting ever worse since. In the next video, I will show you how to construct a paragraph or integrate 4 to 6 sentences of historiography on Tacitus into a paragraph. Thank you.